Claude, I think there's a missing element of that story, and that was you were definitely honest with my footage, and there are students that will just take that grade and run with it and just say, I just want to get my degree and get out of here. And there are students that will question it and go, what did I do wrong? And there's other students that go, all right, that's it. I need to challenge this and ask questions. And the students that ask questions are the ones that want to learn and actually get something from this degree. And that's what I wanted. And that's where I wanted to challenge myself. And it wasn't to be arrogant. It wasn't to be aggressive. It was, this is why I went to school. I wanted to understand the arts. I wanted to understand how to make my passion into something. And that's why I strive to learn more. It was because if I'm here for something. And that was it. It was show me what I'm doing wrong because I need to understand this. I need to understand that path. So that's what I did. And I ended up calling up in to work sick that next day because that's what I wanted to do. That's where I wanted to be, and that's where I am today. And that was a big step. But good evening, everybody. I'm John Flood. I'm a filmmaker, photographer, and founder of Brown Dog Films in Cincinnati. And Sarah, it sounds like you're in pretty much the same spot I am. Well, she just, today was her last day of fifth grade here in Madeira, Ohio. We're right outside Cincinnati. And I've started a new thing a few times, but this is the new thing, being a photographer and filmmaker. And before that, I was a Chicago kid in Chicago with a VHS camcorder growing up. And I was reenacting movies with my brothers in our house basement. But when I was very young, my mom was a modest art teacher at a local YMCA. And she was the first person who showed me that creativity wasn't just a hobby. It could be a passion, it could be a career. And in high school, I was the anchor of our morning announcements. I did it all. I shot video, I edited, I scripted, I even gaffed. I loved every part of it. And my dad, he had other plans. He pushed me to be a law enforcement agent, a real job. And I did that degree for him, not for me. And even then, I kept making short films and taking classes on the side. I just didn't tell him. But when I failed the Chicago police test exam intentionally, I landed a corporate career in tech sales for nearly 2 decades. It was a good salary, good benefits, but there was no fire behind it. Even so, I never put the camera down. I was that guy biking along Lakeshore Drive in downtown Chicago with a point and shoot Canon camera and an early GoPro, chasing sunrises and grabbing behind the scenes glimpses of The Dark Knight. I saw that tumbler going down my street over by my office and some of the Transformers movies. Those big foam rocks that they had in that movie. They were rolling down with the Chicago breezes and all that down Adams Street in Chicago. But when I met my wife, she worked at Google in Chicago and she gifted me with Second City improv classes to help me with my sales job. And when that training shaped who I am now by learning networking skills and adapting to different things to what I do now and leading some of my contractors. But I'm actually not funny like those SNL people that went through Second City. I kind of wish I was. It actually it molded me to a lot of things to what I can do now and what I learned at Full Sail. But then came a turning point. Her job moved us to Cincinnati, and everything I knew, my family, my job, my city, and my Chicago Cubs, I started over. A new city, a new job, working in a cubicle and tech support, making a fraction of what I did in Chicago. Um, even less happiness. But this is the point where most people quit what their thoughts, their passion, and what they strive for. but this is actually where it all started and where I began. Um, in the corporate chapter of that 18 years, this includes the tech support thing. This is where I learned to pitch things. This is where I learned to communicate under pressure. This is where I learned to manage clients, deadlines, and budgets. Um, it gave me a sense of purpose. Even though I dreaded Sundays and I coasted through Mondays, it still gave me fuel for later. It gave me fuel to like want to do more. None of that was wasted. I just kind of had to save it for something different. And there was a lot of takeaways that I saved up. But there was one day that I was talking to a client in my cubicle, and while I'm on the phone and I'm scratching that furry wall cubicle, I'm going, what am I gonna do? I'm looking at my camera that I actually had on my desk that I went out at my lunch, and I was taking pictures of different things around my little town that I was sitting in there. It was right before the pandemic, and I'm like, what am I going to do? What's my next step towards happiness? Because only you can really write what that next chapter is. Um, I was able to open Google while I'm doing my tech support, and I'm looking up film schools going, can I do this? Can I afford this? And it didn't matter if I could afford it because I'll figure it out. You can always figure things out. You can always, um, you all did it. You all figured out how to get here today. So you all have your own stories of how you got there. Um, I landed on Full Sail, and it was it was like, can I actually do this? Can I go to school again? Can I do this? And I did. And so I made this bold move, and I went back to school, and I'm in my mid 40s, and it's crazy. I'm doing virtual classes, and I had my ring light on, and my dog is snoring on the couch behind me, and I'm trying to remember how to turn in assignments. And I have 20-year-olds all in my classes, and they're I have to relearn everything that I thought I knew. How to do homework. Do I know lighting? I have to just shut up and listen. I have to learn editing, storytelling. You're all going through it now. And while I wasn't physically surrounded by classmates, I'm logging into Zoom rooms. It's blowing my mind, but I have to be patient and modest. And also, as you're all doing it now, going to work at the same time, it was incredibly stressful, especially because the pandemic's going on. So you're also stressing about that at the same time. If anything, I'm worried about what these students are thinking of my age in my mid 40s. And then all of a sudden I realized no one cared about how old I was. And it actually gave me an edge. I wasn't the old guy. I was the guy that showed up early. I asked questions. I turned in everything on time, and somehow I graduated top of my class. And it wasn't bad. It was great. I kept my volume down. I stayed up for my late night classes. I had an 8-year-old in the other room that I had to stay quiet for while I was doing all these assignments in the house because of the pandemic. It was the most amazing experience I've ever done. Um, and then there were curveballs during this whole experience. Right after graduation, my or towards the end of graduation, actually, my wife, uh, she came down with breast cancer. So there was this whole, do we push off the last two classes? Do we not? And she said, no, we're going to celebrate together. I'm going to survive this. I'm going to get through this, and we're going to, celebrate together. And so there was work, there was being a dad, there was trying to get, my grades together. There was going out and filming, and then there was taking care of her, and there was all these stresses of having to do all this at once. And then we did it and we survived, both of us. We said we were survivors. And then right after that, my mom, who was my best friend, my someone who took care of me, all through life, she passed away. So it was like one thing after another. And that's where most people quit. They forget about their passion, and they just don't come back from it. So What I'm saying is you're never alone. There's always a way to heal from all of this. Don't forget this passion. It's so worth getting on your feet and going back out there. So the point of this conversation is once you're done with graduation, you have to start from scratch. And there's a very few percentage that have the opportunity to go out there right into a big film. And there's some that have to start from nothing. I started from nothing. So I had my local chamber of commerce. Um I don't know how many of you have started your internship, but I had my internship that I worked really hard at with networking. And so I had those networking skills that I had told you about from um working with the improv class. So um, anyone I could talk to, it was like anytime I heard a no, I turned that into a yes. Anytime I heard maybe come back later, how was later meaning next week? How do I flip that around? Um, so with the Chamber of Commerce, it was all the businesses in town were right there in one room. How do I talk to each one? How do I create a business card? How do I stay frugal and not spend too much money on not only new camera stuff, I had all of that from Full Sail. Um, one business was low on the film side. How do I create an income so I could pay student loans or pay any other kind of like bills that were coming in? So when you're in Randy Baker's class or in Claude's class, you learn little things like composition or exposure or anything like that. So what I was doing was I was finding restaurants or corporate businesses that needed photography. So I bought a used camera, and what I did was I was taking product photography or portraits for the businesses or families that needed actual graduation pictures. And I learned how to use that camera. And it was hard at first, but you can't go back to class once you graduate. So you have to go the old-fashioned way and look up YouTube classes to figure out how to take the right depth for the actual product. So you're always learning, even after school is done. Always keep learning because it's the only thing that's going to make you better. I'm still learning today, 4 years after I graduated, constantly going back. And even that place I did my internship at, that mega church, I'm calling them saying, "Hey, I need to learn something on my lighting skills. I'm feeling like I'm losing touch with something." I'll call them and say, do you guys have anything coming up? And um, I might want to do this pro bono. Can I come there and work something pro bono to touch up my lighting skills? Because you'll realize that you're um, trying to be modest with yourself, and you look at some of your photography or your film work and go, I'm losing the edge on something. And go find somebody that you're close to, one of your network people, and say, can I just come and stay up to date on something? It's an excellent way to just to go and spend some time doing that. Um, Also, when you're out there looking for new clients, there's so many different ways to do it when you're starting your business. And I know that I'm talking pretty quick. We're only 22 minutes into it, but there's a point of burnout when you're out there looking for clients. You can't just, I always look at it as like the baseball method. And some of you might not know, like when you hear a baseball player hitting 200 or 250, um, that means that they're hitting two or three times per 10 times that they're up. So if I walk into a business, 10 businesses, and two of them say, yes, I'll work with you, that's a good thing. That's a good hitter. And so what I do is I figure if I get two or three yeses, that's a good thing. Three yeses is like an all-star hitter. And sometimes I'll get a client that ghosts me. And when I'm not getting a paycheck or I'm not getting anything for a week or two, and I'm like, how am I going to eat next week? How am I going to pay that camera payment off? It sometimes can eat at you. And you got to take care of your mental health. You got to take care of your your soul, I guess you could say. So sometimes take your drive and go somewhere else. Don't focus on those clients that aren't answering. Go to a different client. Just keep moving. Don't ever stop and just take that focus and look at something else. And the other thing that Claude and I were talking about yesterday is know that probably every time you go out, something's going to go wrong. I can't tell you how many times that I've gone out and here's the thing, because of cost, 9 out of 10 times I am out doing everything. And I have a lot of shoots where I do documentary work and I am not only the host, but the grip, the camera, the lighting, I do everything. And I'll be rushing to the business and setting things up, and all of a sudden my light won't turn on. And I've set up the everything else, the mics, the cameras, and I am sweating and I'm about to sit down and interview the the talent, and I can't figure out why the light won't turn on. And I'm like, I have to figure this out. And I end up just opening a blind in the window, and then all of a sudden I'm 3 questions in and I go, I forgot to turn on the switch. And that was the only thing. And I wasted the 3 questions and I can't go back now because it'll compromise the film. Or the wireless wasn't charged. It was because I was just rushing to get things done. And it's just these simple little stupid things that you forget while you're getting things set up because you're trying to cut costs, or you're trying to save time, or everything is going to go wrong, but you'll figure out a way to make it work. You will figure out a way because you have to. You have to get the shot done. You have to pay the bill. You have to make the client happy. Um, Let me think of what else. Your first jobs aren't your legacy. They're not your launch pads. So don't worry about your first jobs being your portfolio makers. Um, so if you are worried about carrying over your early projects that you did a full sale onto your portfolios and making those being your star jobs, you can. But um, my first job was a pro bono job that I did right out of right out of graduation, where I went up to Chicago and did something with there was a traumatic moment up in a suburb in Chicago where there was an issue, and I did a documentary where I brought a first responder and some people that were affected by this traumatic moment, and um, I donated my time and editing and everything else to the community that was affected by this traumatic moment. And it was some of my best work ever. And I carried that on to trying to get business with that. And it was an excellent film, but carrying on those traumatic images to businesses that are all very positive and happy, and hey, pizza place, look at this traumatic moment. It was very hard to show these images to this pizza place that wants to say, hey, clients, look at these sad people that I help film. You have to be careful about what images you show to other clients. So first jobs are hard for that kind of thing. And if you have questions on what I mean by that, we can talk about that in a couple minutes. Um, uh, Always freelance. Sometimes do your free jobs, and start small. Don't go right away in and say, "Hey, I'm going to charge you $6,000" when you don't have the little jobs to show for that value. Um, Pride doesn't pay the rent, so make sure that you start small, aim small, and do a lot of little things to build up that portfolio. And Claude will tell you this. He told me this a long time ago. Shoot something every day, practice every day. I still do it. I still do it. Whether it's on your phone, whether it's on your big cinema camera, or it's on just a point and shoot. Practice every single day. It only makes you better. Um, Stay frugal. Debt kills creativity. Don't buy a bunch of stuff. Like, for example, that DJI Mini um 4 just came out, the stabilizer. You don't need it. You don't. Just practice holding a camera with your hand. J- Just stay frugal because you're going to be in enough student debt as it is. Just stay frugal. Don't get in more debt. Trust me. I'm 4 years into it. You don't need more junk. Trust me. Learn the unsexy stuff. This is key. This is key because doing spreadsheets, sales, budgeting, client services, HR, understanding like what it's like to talk to people, pick up the phone. Don't text everything. Don't text. Talk to people. You'll be surprised how much that helps you and the way that you do business. People are so surprised when I just call them. They're like, "Oh, hi, John, you called me." Or I just showed up in the front door. Hey, John. It makes that will save you from the guy that you've probably seen this all over the place. The guy with the DLSR or the mirrorless that's walking around that you're just like, that's the YouTube guy that just used learned on YouTube. And he's charging them $10 an hour to go into the place and you're like, I'm the one going to film school and learning everything that it takes. But he's the one that's walking into the place making the connection and you're not. That's the difference. Go into the place and tell them that you're going to film school, that you have the gear, that you make the difference. Don't text. That's the difference. And sales, like I said, you don't have to go to improv school, but go on YouTube, learn sales, learn what a sales funnel is, where it's like this is where your prospect is, this is where like your chance of making the money, this is your closer is, and learn how to budget. That's big. It's not hard. It's not hard at all. And then protect your mental health relentlessly. That is a huge thing. Learn how to get up in the morning, do a couple push-ups, do a couple sit-ups, put the Funyuns down, drink a ton of water. It's big, especially in the wintertime if you're up north. Um, I think that's it. Did I miss anything, Claude?
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Not at all. That was so much information so fast, and
I
it was such good information. Um, you
think I
can,
forgot to share that um
well, you're co-host now, but one thing I definitely want to do is, can you pull up the screen that you pulled up yesterday, showing your collection of videos that you've done, where you were scrolling through them?
I forgot to share this too. Let me see if I can get it. This
Yeah, it's
screen
on there
itself.
now. Yeah, it's up.
So this is important to me. That shows starting a new thing. And this can go for any point of your life, really. But this is really when you start college at Full Sail, and there's a lot of people that after the first couple of classes they quit. And then this is where you are right before graduation. But this is going to be you again, right when you graduate, where you're going to be starting a new thing. And a lot of people, when they start that business and they realize how hard it is, they're like, oh gosh, I'm going to go corporate or I'm just not going to do anything. And then um, I'm about right here. And I was telling Claude yesterday, I'm like, I don't know where my success is, but I'm not making $1 million. And I think Claude said yesterday that there's people in the film industry that they're they're making films, but they're sleeping on couches. So it's like where is success in people's minds? And it doesn't matter how much money you're making, it matters how happy you are.
Wow. Yes,
Right.
absolutely. So can you just like scroll through, and you don't have to click play on them, but just sort of go through and show us how many clients that you've worked for, and like
Sure.
uh, just kind of briefly talk about the journey through just looking at all of these.
Sure. So in here, some of my, let this load up real quick. Some of my main clients right now are, let me go down here. I do work with a lot of doctors, which right now doctors are big into talking about case studies. So it helps them. There's a lot of good money in working with doctors. What they do is it helps them talk about how their work. So this one's an acupuncturist, and she talks about how non-traditional therapy has helped her clients not have to take painkillers and help them achieve things. He does non-traditional therapy as well. He works for Chamber of Commerce, so there's construction in the area, and he's helped the community talk about different paths they can take to go around the construction. This corporate company has reached out from Atlanta. I've been able to work with them. Um, uh, um, I guess not in Atlanta. So I've done a lot of like, um, y- this is all stock video. So I haven't even had to shoot video for them. I've gone there once and filmed them with a couple training videos, but otherwise it's all stock video and then a lot of lower thirds stuff. But
So
otherwise,
something that you're touching on, and it's becoming fairly apparent, is to give a little backstory.
hmm
I think I talked a little bit about this before, but at a previous school that I taught at, there was a program that was the intensive, and I had these 12 students, and I had the entire year, and that's all I had with them. And
hmm
at the end, I was supposed to place them each into a job in the industry. Well, it came time to place them in the jobs, and some would get the opportunity to be an editor at a local news channel. And they
hmm
would say, no, I kind of envision myself as a director, right? Or,
hmm
no, that's not really where I see myself working. And I was flabbergasted because in the end, I think only three took positions, even though they were all, right there for the taking. And it was just them not wanting to take the position. So it's just wild to me because you don't know who you're going to meet at that news station. Or
Exactly.
there was one student that ended up going into a big museum, and he was going to do all the content for the museum. Well, you meet a lot of really interesting artists and a lot of people within that community, and you're always at work, you're always talking, and things lead to other things. And you mentioned photography. You mentioned editing stock footage. There
hmm
are certain students that might say, I'm a cinematographer, I don't do So can you talk a little bit about, I think you mentioned it, and I think you said it very succinctly in be humble,
hmm Yeah.
but can you kind of talk a little bit more about that?
Yeah. I think that if you can still be good at your cinematography, but be open-minded to be good at everything. I mean, my wife who works in this industry where she's like, well, you should be good, really good at one thing. And I'm like, I think you should be good at everything so that people can depend on you to be transferable to anything. I started at that church rolling up stingers. Stingers, if you don't know what they are
Mm.
just power cords. And I was filling up water bottles, and now I am a second AC over there, and that means that I'm like not only like on the clapper board, but I'm holding one of their RE cameras and getting things like set up on the camera and changing the lenses and doing some amazing things. And that was quick. That was very quick. So if you are asked to go on a news station, I've been dying to go on a news station, but I'm in a small city and it's saturated here, so it's very, very hard. And but there's to apply to a news station here, you can either do it the old-fashioned way and go on LinkedIn, and you kind of have to get your name in there. But there's a roundabout way. So I also do a lot of volunteering with Girls on the Run, with Breast Cancer Foundation, and with um, what's the other one? There's a third one, and I don't know why I can't remember on top of my head because my nerves are on the wall right now. But there's do a lot of volunteering if you can. And those are where a lot of news stations will show up and a lot of other large corporations. Like here, there's P&G, Procter& and Gamble, and Kroger, and other big cities have these large corporations too, which are also good places to go get situated with your videography and photography skills. Um, where you start small and go up the scale very, very quick. Um, you're talking six-digit positions very, very fast if you get into them. And when you work these volunteer positions, that's where you network. People are like, "Oh, so where do you work? Do you have a card? Um, would you ever work corporate?" And I'm just right there is I've handed out dozens of business cards. And you just got to follow up. You go, "All right, what's yours?" or shake hands. And now it's every time I post one of these videos on Instagram, I get probably two or three people from Kroger or P&G or our local NBC station saying, "Hey, I remember you from the Girls on the Run 5K" or something like that. And so this little area here is starting to remember Brown Dog films. And they don't have to remember my natural disaster last name. They remember my business name, which is kind of cool. And so it's the little growth goes a long way, and um, it's kind of cool to see how it's grown just from nothing. Um, I'm gonna be surprised, 6 months from now or a year from now, what updates I'll be able to tell you from where this company's going. And I can't wait for you guys to tell Claude the same thing in a year from now.
So we started off talking with Sarah about her going out to get some B-roll at the baseball
Hmm.
field because, she said her son does baseball.
Yeah,
And you might find that your local township wants you to want somebody to do a commercial about the baseball league. Or
yeah,
I end up in the wrestling and the jujitsu with my son. And I was talking to you yesterday about this, how I keep seeing somebody walk out on the mat with a little SLR, like they're just walking around handheld and just kind of doing drive-by shooting and not taking it seriously. They're not lighting. They're just kind of hoping something ends up in focus, and then they'll edit the bits that just randomly ended up in focus because I know like those kids are moving 100 miles an hour and he's moving around, and I'm just like, focus is determined by the subject and that film sensor. And if they're all in flux, he's either on like an autofocus or it's like in and out, and there's like these little glitches. So he can only use whatever footage happens to turn out. And I'm sitting there just thinking, oh my goodness, like this is just like it's like right there. It's just like low hanging fruit for anybody that wants to show up and say, I'm a pro. And if you're, can you talk a little bit about this? Because we had this conversation yesterday and how you've run into this multiple times.
yeah. Um, there was an example where there's a karate school by me, and this same scenario happened. And um, let me see if I have the examples. Hold on one second here. I actually put them on my site today. There we go. So this lady that owns the karate school comes in today, or not today. She she had a gentleman walk in with her with his DLSR, and he was snapping off pictures, and I walked in later on, and she's like, I know you're part of the Chamber of Commerce, but this guy was charging $15 an hour. And I gave her a quote for, I think it was $60 an hour. And she goes, that's way too expensive. We can't afford that. And I go, well, let me see his pictures. And she's like, well, can you come in and do a test demo? And I'm like, well, it's $60 an hour.
Yes.
And she's like, well, all right, fine. Can you just do two people? And I'm like, all right, for $60 an hour. And the whole gist of the story is that you you never want to like lowball something because that guy might be $12 an hour, but you get what you pay for, right? And you have to prove it somehow. And so the guy went and he shot his photos. And then she ended up calling me later going, all right, we really need you to come back in here. I'm like, well, what happened? And she's like, well, his photos were horrible and we lost what we wanted from this guy. He did a horrible job, and we came in there and we gave her what we wanted. And so you really have to go in and be confident with your pricing. You have to be confident with your art. And when somebody tells you what they want, y- you've been through the training, you've been through your practice, you've been through everything else. If you can vision it, you can create it, even if it's not film. Um, you've been through this kind of lighting, you've been through this editing, you can do it. And if this is what they want, trust me, you can achieve it. Does that make
So,
sense?
yes, but just to be clear, the images that you're showing are your images, and they're tremendous. They're excellent. I love your
Thank you.
images. And unfortunately, you probably don't have access to what that $12 an hour gentleman provided them. But I could imagine something with, no light was changed. Probably just walked into the studio and started taking photos without a lighting setup or without even thinking about anything other than just point and shoot. And
Correct.
yeah, so this is very thoughtful. It's very artistic. You had a vision, and you may have had to talk to the client about what their vision was. You can, as we did earlier, before I hit record, I started pulling up images for Sarah and just kind of going through and starting to brainstorm. So if you're going to show up to a dojo, or you may be able to go there and see what time of day am I going to be there to shoot? What time is this class going to be? Also, start looking at all the images and get ideas. There's probably a tremendous amount of photography that has been done in every conceivable space. Like just whatever you can dream up, you can find it on Google and loads of it. So have an understanding of what you want when you go out there and have a vision. And yes, you want to make it your own. You don't have to adhere strictly to, these images that are helping to inspire you, but you want to go out with an understanding of what you want to get when you get there. Like, can you walk us through your process? Like, can you go back to that fireball shot or the initial one you
Yeah.
showed us? Like,
Mhm.
and just explain like quickly, like, how did you do it? How did you prepare for it? And what are we looking at here?
So it was very, very simple actually. I bought a can of this. It was a it was spray fogger, so I didn't have to bring the fog machine in there. Um, and um, I just used just a light with a dome around it, and I took off the diffuser, and I put a backlight on her with a blue, so I tried to contrast the light. So I put a yellow light on her or on the key light, and then I put a blue light. So I tried to contrast the lights, try to look for contrasting lights on all of them. So I played a lot with the lights themselves with the gels. So everything was trying I was trying to be as like frugal as possible with what I had. And then I went in there with Lightroom and played a lot with the vignettes. And there's I went on Instagram and I tried to find two different sports photographers and studied how they did it. And they had a lot of different um, high-end flash photography that I couldn't afford. So I tried to do it as frugal as possible, and this is how it worked. And I thought it actually looked better.
Yeah. That's having a vision, understanding, and there's always this idea of just I'm going to throw money at a problem. And I love that you made such a strong point in your lecture about staying frugal. You don't need to spend a lot of money. You have to do the pre-pro, have a vision, and most people are going to like, oh, well, I think I need to invest in a fog machine. You show up with a can. How much was that can?
$12.
There you go. Yes. Yeah.
And I've
And
used it for like six different products, product shoots.
yeah, absolutely. And I just, know your worth is, I think, a really important thing to say. And once build yourself up to a certain point, yes, if you want to do something pro bono, fine. If it's for a good cause and, you're doing, like the 5K girls run, that's awesome. And like going to all like the community networking and all of that. And understand that there will be a time and a place to do pro bono, but
Hmm.
also always value yourself. And if you see somebody undercutting you and they're getting more gigs than you, generally you get what you pay for.
Yes,
So
absolutely.
don't let that completely intimidate you. You might end up getting a phone call sooner than later because if they're not providing you good images, I mean, look at the images on screen right now. Like, can you scroll up? I love some of those. Yeah, like just and like you also talked about like understanding, all right, well, if I'm going to be doing a photo shoot for a restaurant, a local restaurant in town, these are stunning, by the way, so good.
Thank you.
So like so good. Um, if you understand what you're going to be shooting, like would you show up not knowing what kind of depth of field that you need to get or what kind of lens you would want to
Oh
use?
no, these were all thought of like 3 or 4 days ahead of time.
Yes, and would you do some research and figure out, maybe watch a YouTube video on maybe there's somebody out there that's has a bunch of YouTube videos. And honestly, at this point, John could even do that if he wanted to. He could create a YouTube video channel that teaches freelancers how to do different jobs. And he could put those videos up, and everybody in this industry would just click on them, and he would be getting money off that because he monetized them. So there's,
I
yeah.
I have like 3 or 4 different photographers, and then I mean I study for hours before I go out to a shoot, no matter what. No matter what. That's the
And
thing.
and will you leave a shoot before you get the perfect image?
No,
And are you really critical about what a perfect image entails?
absolutely.
Yes. Look at this. Like, how many takes are we looking at there to get that perfect shot?
You mean how many glasses did I break?
Yes, that's true too. Yes. But it's being exacting, demanding the highest order from your skill set, demanding nothing but perfection. And I won't say any foul language, but I always have a rule which is called the 2S rule. And if I'm the cinematographer and I'm working with the director, I establish this 2S rule. And when the shot is finished, the director will usually ask me, "Did you get it?" And I'll either say it's superb or it's trash. And if the tiniest little thing is wrong, it's immediately trash. It's just trash because it has to be perfect. And until I get that absolutely perfect shot, I will not say it's superb. But that director will begin to trust me and know that when I say superb, I mean it, and they can trust that we got the shot and we can now move on. And even at that point, I'll often say, let's do another one for safety, and I will wait to get a second superb shot, and then we're good to go. But it's clear by these images. These images don't just happen. They don't just happen. It's not, I'm going to show up and I'm just going to move around a bunch with my camera handheld. And no, this is like, can you go to that band photo with all the contrasty colors? Look at this. I mean, your client's going to be so happy with you. I mean, the client's going to be like, this is great. You
Hmm.
get to put that in a magazine. You know, it's just taking the time and the thought process of how am I going to light this? What lens do I have to have on the day for this type of product? What kind of lens do I use? What kind of depth of field should I have? And
Yeah.
understand what's expected so that they can go to, a magazine or onto a website, or if they can blow it up. They need to, you'd have to have these conversations beforehand. But I think we've gotten a tremendous amount of information, and I had a lot of questions. So thank you for being patient. We have a bit of time, so I do want to ask if the students have some questions.
Sure.
I'll look for a hand to come up. Let's see. I'll give everybody a moment. Usually it takes a little bit once you put the students on the spot, but then they just sort of keep coming, the questions. But does anybody have a question? You
Thank you,
can,
Jada.
yeah. If you're a little too shy, you can always type your question into the chat box as well. Nobody has a question. I'm sure they do, but
I just
oh,
want to say
there we
thank
go.
you so much for all of the information. This was, I too am like you in my 40s, back in school. This was really, 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 really good.
Thank you. I know what it's like to be in your position, and it's like you're just starting this new chapter. This is the hard part. Once you get out there, it's like, whoa, what are we gonna do now? And what's your plan? What are you gonna do next? What's your goal?
Well, I plan to move back to Shreveport, Louisiana, get an internship at the new G Unit Studios that 50 Cent is building in Shreveport. That's my
Cool.
hometown, and hopefully start my career there.
Awesome. Awesome.
Yeah. Now, Timothy has a question.
Yeah, I was wondering. Sorry, I thought I had my microphone on.
Hmm.
Okay.
You do now. I can hear you, Timothy.
Okay. Did Hollywood ever LA ever contact you for like filming and helping other directors?
I was contacted by one director that wanted me to come and do some camera work this summer in July. And this is like one of the this is one of the when I mentioned that people will ghost you. So I was as soon as I you set your own rate sheet at one point once you get established and start getting feeling confident about creating a rate sheet for what you can do and what you feel you have the skills to do. Um, and she got my information from a previous student that I graduated with who is also in the film industry. And she's putting together this movie, reached out in December. We talked through January and she goes, all right, send me your rates. As soon as I sent my rates, and I followed up a couple weeks later, I'm like, all right, do you have the contract for me? I have been ghosted. So when I followed up with my friend, he's like, well, that's just how the industry works. They sometimes like your rate, sometimes they don't, and sometimes they'll just wave you off. So on that end, you just have to be strong enough to let it go and move on, and hopefully something else comes. But um, I'm in a position where I'm a dad, and you either have to be okay with leaving your kid for an X amount of time, or you don't, and you go a different route, and um you do what I'm doing, and you do the positions that are within driving distance. And so um at I'm 45 now, so it's hard to be away from my child and miss a lot of things. She plays volleyball. She's at that time where she wants me to hang out with her, which is, you know, she's not going to want me to hang out with her all the time in the next couple of years. So it's like it's hard, man. Like
It's true.
do I
I get
go?
it.
Do I stay? What's more important? That time with my kid, or do I go out and shoot a film for 2 months?
Mhm. James, you have a question as well? Give him a minute for his microphone. You got your microphone muted, James? Oh, there you are. Can you hear us? Oh, there you go.
Hey, James.
Oh, your microphone isn't working. He'll get it working.
All right. Am I okay now?
I
No,
can hear
you're
you.
good.
Yeah.
Cool. Nice to meet you, John. Good
Hey,
to see you,
James.
Professor O.
Yeah, it's good to see you again, James.
Absolutely. And thanks for the recommendation too. I wanted to just touch on base. I got a two-part thing for you, John.
Okay.
You hit a chord with me. I'm also over the 40 group, so I think this was the perfect Zoom for all the over 40 crew. So shout out to us. But um, I wanted to actually touch on that. You ran down very quickly in the very beginning, man, that you went through a lot with your wife. You also lost your mom. I lost my mom in November.
Oh,
Um,
I'm sorry to hear that.
through this journey, I appreciate that. Through this journey, I had a moment of wanting to quit as well. I was in the third week of a course when she passed and had an assignment due the Tuesday that was like after she passed. And all I can remember her saying was, "You better walk across that stage. You, we don't know what Winter Park looked like. You got to go find out because we're from Philly." Um,
Yeah.
I say that to say I connect with you so wholeheartedly on that because I know the internal battles you probably went through. I
Mm.
also due to have a daughter born on June 3rd.
Oh, congrats.
Thank you. So my wife, and this is our second child. So much again, it just goes back to what you touched on. So much going on. We're in school. You have to try to find that balance, and mental health is the key. So I'll throw that out there for anyone that's not going to speak on this level. But I wanted to thank you for saying that because
Yeah.
it helped me. You know what I mean? Because I felt like I was in an island by myself. And that's
Yep.
the one thing I wanted to touch on and just thank you for that. Like Jada said, thanks for all the information. Like the information was amazing. My
Yeah.
question to you is, with all that going on, what did you consider the most important thing for you to do to balance yourself in that moment while dealing with full cell or graduating school in general and staying creative and balancing family? What was the one thing that was the common denominator whenever you went out with your camera or whenever you wanted to create? What was that one thing you had to do?
You gotta take care of yourself. Everybody's gonna tell you something different. Like some people have the higher power, some people have other things, but I think Claude will tell you one thing that I did for one of his projects was food. I cooked a lot. So I made a lot. I mean, it might sound cliche because a lot of people cooked a lot of bread during the pandemic, but I cooked a lot. I still do cook a lot. So like there's like little hobbies I did. Um, I don't drink, so like that helps to stay healthy. I'm not gonna force that on anybody, but like that definitely helps.
Neither. I don't either.
But the one thing I will say is that I found a show. I found a show that I watch constantly over and over and over again that like, and anybody can do this with any show, but like you find something to take your mind into another place to recharge. It could be a show, it could be like a place to travel, it could be walking your dog. Just take a break from reality for like an hour, come back, go work out for an hour, come back, take care of you.
Mhm.
Because if you can't take care of you, you can't take care of the business that's around you.
Thanks.
Yeah.
I appreciate you, man. Thanks a lot for that. I really do appreciate it.
Yeah, no problem.
So does anybody else have anything else before we? Oh, Ronald. Ronald has a question.
Yes. How you doing?
Hey,
Um, hey John, I want to know what inspired you to get into this industry.
well, it was definitely my mom's artistic ability when I was young, and then right now it's definitely to be creative and not have a boss.
Mm.
Um, Having a boss for my entire life and reporting to somebody was definitely a hard thing to have. Being my own boss is an amazing thing, but if I ever had the opportunity to go into the film industry, like in Chicago, in LA, in New York, and have, a director, a producer tell me what to do, I'd be like, come on, bring it on. Like it would be amazing to have that opportunity. Um, but to be able to have the the opportunity to hold a camera and go out there and change the world through my hands, it's just this amazing feeling. Or to get on my computer and write a story and and come up with something that changes something that helps people in one way or another. It's an amazing feeling.
Oh, great.
Yeah,
Yeah.
wonderful question and great answer. Wow. Uh, Pride. So, Michael, are you there? There you go.
There we go. Okay. Hi, John, and thank
Hey.
you so much for the great information. I'm
Yeah.
also part of the over 40 club, so
Hey.
I'm glad so many of us are part of that group.
Yes.
Uh, Ronald actually he's somewhat touched on what I was going to ask you. I know you
Mhm.
said that at one point you don't really know what success looks like for you yet, and it got me curious if there was a dream position or a goal you initially had when you began your journey? And if not, totally fine too. But maybe if you have that dream position or goal now, one reason I'm asking this is because I kind of joke around with other friends of mine in this field where I say that one day I'm going to write a book that's titled "You're Not Tarantino," or whatnot. So I would just love to hear what your dream position might be, if you know what it is, or what, if it's changed from when you first started.
You know, what really inspired me was when I was in Chicago, I was lucky enough to see Anthony Bourdain speak on stage. And I had followed him, watched all of his shows, and I saw him change the world by having people sit down with him and have food and talk about their pains, their happiness, their, you know, bring them into their home and just talk about food and life and peace and pain and all these things. And for me, he came from such a broken life and broken inside, broken pain, and a broken just everything. And um, for me, I was just like, this guy inspires me so much that he was able to write a book, write about his life, write about his background. It's really what I wanted to do was carry on what he did to help others through his eyes and his pen and his voice and his lens. Um, Obviously, I can't be Anthony Bourdain, but I can carry on that pride and that energy somehow, some way. And so my thought was going into Full Sail was to help people that are going through trauma, kind of like how I did that documentary up north in Highland Park, was that would be the start of my path was if if people were in pain or going through some kind of PTSD or trauma or something, that yes, there's footsteps with photography and there's footsteps with helping restaurants or something like that, but I've done several sit downs and interviews with people where I'm on camera, but I'm talking to people about their stories, how they built their businesses, how they built their backgrounds, where they came from. And that's really where I want to go is the Anthony Bourdain route, really. Sit down, talk to people, understand who they are, have them talk, um, and hopefully get food involved.
And well, thank you so much for that.
Yeah.
And just to
Yeah.
clarify, when I said that, like when I joke around with friends about, writing a book titled "You're Not Tarantino," you
Hmm.
actually touched on it perfectly because the whole point of it is, there's no people I know who have not progressed because they're so hung up on trying to hit the apex of the career that they don't attempt anything.
Yeah.
And to me, it's all about don't try to be somebody else, be yourself, find your own path because everyone's path is different, and
Hmm.
you'll make whatever difference you want to make as long as you follow your own road. So
Yeah.
thank you.
Yeah. No problem.
That was also extremely articulate. That was really well said. Um, wow. I hope you write that down on a piece of paper. I always find there's magic in writing what you want on a piece of paper and laminating it and put it in your pocket. Maybe I'll try to, you'll get a recording of this, but at the end, you were extraordinarily articulate and you said what you said, and it was as if you just sort of created and pitched a show. And I was like, I hope you write that down and write it down as a 5-year goal and just hold on to it because that was extraordinary. Yeah. I
Thank you.
was very impressed. That's not an easy question to answer, and I
No.
don't think most people know. I don't even think most people know. So the fact that you just were able to answer, but also very sincerely, and like I said, it was really well said. So you could see there was a lot of sincerity and passion, and I like follow your passion. That's what you've been doing for a long time now.
Yeah. I think
Yeah,
inch by inch, I'm slowly getting there.
yeah.
Just slowly chipping away.
And can you briefly talk about inch by inch? Talk about momentum and what it's like to get a little bit of momentum and how never to let that go.
I think that if you push too hard at exactly what you want to do, you'll miss the smaller elements. Meaning, how I always screw this up by using too many metaphors. But like, if all you want to do is one big target, you miss out on like the little things. And so if all I wanted to do was this documentary work on on helping people, then I'm missing like how to film. So if I wanted to do food too, then I'm missing out on how to properly light the food, or I'm missing how to cook the food, or I'm missing how to talk about the food, or I'm missing how to travel properly, or I'm missing all like the little elements that go into it. So if you watch, what's that guy Tucci that's on Discovery, or I think he's on Disney now, Tucci in Italy. Do you know what I'm talking
Yeah,
about?
yeah, yeah. He has isn't he at William and Sonoma as well?
I think so.
Like he has a
He's
line of like dishware now, the Tucci line of dishware. He's an actor. He's like, yeah, yeah. He's on a lot of. He was in Devil Wears Prada, right?
I think so.
Am I
He's
talking
kind
about
of
the right guy?
Yeah,
Yeah,
he's kind of an interesting guy, but his cinematography or filmmaking, I was watching a little bit of it last night. It's excellent. It's excellent. At least on my TV. I don't know. It looked
yeah,
phenomenal. And um I feel like there's so many little elements that you have to learn along the way, how to talk to people, how to understand, how to listen is so important. And you can't just focus on the questions that you want to ask people, or you can't focus on just the camera skills, or there's so many elements. And I've learned that in the last 4 years after graduation, like how to handle the things that break down, the broken memory cards, like we talked about
yeah,
yesterday. I still have my tripod from Full Sail that I'm looking at right now, and it's got sand in it from being at the beach a couple of weeks ago, and I'm going, how am I going to clean this out? Is it going to survive the summer? Like, how am I going to financially fix this? There's so many little things that we have to think about as filmmakers before we get into the big picture of our passion.
yeah. Well said again. So before we say goodnight, I like to ask all the guest lecturers to just throw out maybe 3 or 4 or 5 films that they can watch again and again. It doesn't have to be your favorite all-time film. It's just a film that is a guilty pleasure, something that you've recently watched or something that just really lit your hair on fire, or just maybe a couple film recommendations. Totally put you on the spot.
I'm going to answer this because I already alluded to the show that I keep watching over and over and over. Um, well, it's a show called Supernatural, and I watched it all through college.
You're talking about the two brothers.
Yes.
I watched it. I enjoyed that show. And when I was in my MFA program at NYU, I like binge, like I would watch at night just to like turn off my brain.
Yeah.
Yeah, I used to watch that show too. That's wild. I was like, yeah, absolutely.
I
I
can't
love that
stop
show.
watching it. I don't know why. I just like I've watched it all the seasons over and over again. And before that, and I didn't want to tell you this yesterday, it was True Blood. I've watched that.
Okay. All right. All right. Those are TV shows and I love
Yeah.
it. I love it. But
Yeah.
okay, so what about some films, like some movies?
I don't know. You keep opening my eyes to new ones. But
I had a student the other night tell me to watch a 1949 film called The Window. So I put it on. The cinematography is extraordinary, and it was just a fun ride. I enjoyed it. Yeah. Yeah.
I'd have to think about this one.
I was trying to buy you some time just there, but it's hard.
Nobody's
It's hard to
nobody's
come up.
answered yet.
Yeah, yeah. No, I was asking you directly.
Oh,
Oh. No, I
geez.
asked this of my guest lecture, but James, you had your hand up. Did you want to throw out a recommendation real quick?
I did want to. I didn't have a recommendation, but I just wanted to touch on something before we lose John and before we get off. John, I wish this we would have had this Zoom a little earlier because you referenced this thing here, and I went and got it. This is the DJI RS4 Pro.
Oh, you got the Pro. I was talking about the Mini.
Yeah, I got, and it's the big boy. So I went.
Okay.
So goodness gracious, where were you maybe 2 months ago? But thank you, man. Yeah, that's all. I'm sorry, y'all. I just wanted to get
No,
that
that's okay.
touched on
That's
it.
all right.
Yeah.